I'm going to be diving deep into Anonymous now. Afterwards, I'm going to be taking questions, but I'm going to be diving deep into two groups, Anonymous and the Carbanic group. Now, Anonymous is the hacktivist collective group that is internationally known, and there's hundreds of these groups. So, just going to go to the next slide. So, what do they stand for? They stand for internet freedom. You know, they absolutely hate censorship. They hate when governments oppress internet freedoms for their civilians, for their people. One case in point, there was an operation called Operation Payback, where WikiLeaks published a whole bunch of diplomatic U.S. cables in 2010, and what WikiLeaks sort of found themselves in a mess with is that PayPal, Amazon, and even Visa said, no, we're not going to allow you to get donations from this because we inherently side with the U.S. government, saying that this is horrible, this is like treason. You're kind of exposing all of our diplomatic cables. So they actually pulled the donation button straight from the website. And Anonymous, they completely freaked about that. So they actually launched campaigns to attack PayPal, to attack Visa, and really, bring down their websites for hours at a time. And that costs them millions of dollars whenever there's a data breach like that. They also played a key role in sort of revolutions in sort of Egypt and Tunisia. When you can go to the next slide, actually, I go a little more into depth with the next one. A little bit more into depth with Tunisia and Egypt. What happened in Egypt was there was a huge revolt, if you guys don't remember, not too long ago. And what the Egypt government did was they actually cut the cable. They cut themselves from the internet completely. And that obviously caused a lot of disarray between the people because the internet's a huge tool for communication now these days, especially if you're trying to plan a revolution. So what the government did was they completely cut the internet, and what Anonymous did was they started attacking the Egyptian government websites, defacing them, sort of went out onto the ground and tried to help people connect to the internet from other methods. And what they did in Tunisia, during the Tunisian revolt, was the Tunisian government didn't necessarily cut the internet, but they did a countrywide man-in-the-middle attack, where they actually hacked into the Facebook accounts of most of their citizens. They grabbed their passwords, they started listening in on what they were doing, all throughout this entire revolution, to sort of pinpoint who is sort of a really aggressive opponent that is sort of a political enemy. And Anonymous, when they got wind of that, they obviously attacked the Tunisian government relentlessly. We can see that there's been countless of other operations that Anonymous kind of fights for. And Anonymous is kind of hard to describe as a group because there is no leader. Anyone can kind of carry around this Anonymous flag and put this Guy Fawkes mask on and say, hey, I'm going to hack you in the name of Anonymous. But the best way to describe Anonymous is kind of how they fight, what they believe in, their philosophy. And what I described, in the previous slides, internet freedom, and those sort of hacktivist movements, that's what really represents Anonymous. They'll really turn on themselves internally and kind of root out all the stuff that they don't really believe in. Case in point, they had a sort of a war against Donald Trump not too long ago, and they actually kind of has been slowly slowing down on that war because they thought, even though this guy is a monster, he still has a right to sort of stand up and speak about what he believes in, so we're not going to necessarily attack him. He's not censoring anybody, he's not sort of oppressing anyone physically by turning off their internets or sort of anything that Anonymous is really going against. So we're kind of seeing that war effort or that operation sort of de-escalate.